Talking about a lot of issues involving Washington, D.C. We will continue to do so. It's always an honor to be joined by Senator Bill Hagerty on the Murphy Show hotline as he talks to us about the goings-on in D.C. Senator, good afternoon. Thank you for being on with us.
Matt, it's always great to be with you. Thank you.
I do appreciate you tackling and diving deep into the issues that might not be on the surface or on the radar of the average Tennessean. And one of those issues that you are consistently on the cutting edge of some of these points to be made in the halls of the Senate would be China. And I noted that you took yet another step to attempt to expose China as the number one geopolitical foe that we face in the United States of America. Just yesterday, I believe it was, bipartisan bill. Tell me about it.
Well, look, China has been doing everything it possibly can to advance itself at our expense. If you look back, and this is an interesting experience, I was sitting with President Trump when we were negotiating the trade deal with China and with Japan. This is back when I was serving as U.S. ambassador to Japan, and the slides were both in front of us. One had a chart of the expenditures of the CCP on their military, the PLA expenditures, and the dramatic ramp up since 2001. Since they joined the WTO, the dramatic ramp up in their military expenditures. President Trump said, look at this. He overlaid our trade deficit, the chart that had our trade deficit over that military spending chart. It almost exactly matched. He looked at me and he said, we're paying for this. The deficit that we're running with China is paying for this. What is also paying for it is that China has been stealing our intellectual property, right, left, and center. If you want to do business in China, you've got to transfer your technology to them. They don't play by the same set of rules in any way. And I think the most nefarious is when they actually violate our sovereignty. I mean, we've seen what's happened with the spy balloon floating over the country, with them working with Cuba to put in place a deeper spy operation there. It's just unbelievable to try to put in police stations here in the United States to suppress their own people. And then most recently hacking the email accounts of cabinet members here in the United States of America. But the Biden administration's response to this is, well, we want to go over and get some photo ops. We want to start negotiating with China, begging them to stop sending fentanyl here. I mean, China's talking about using, by prohibiting their effort to prohibit fentanyl precursors from coming to the United States as a bargaining point with us. We're going to have to ask for that. We're going to have to bargain with them to get them to stop sending fentanyl. They want to be able to start or be able to maintain their police stations here in America to spy on and oversee their people here in America, and who knows who else that they're looking at, you and me.
There has been a lot of conjecture and speculation as to whether or not the president of the United States might be compromised in the manner in which he handles China. What do you say to that? I'm certain you've heard this type of language. What do you say to it, Senator?
Man, I think it's absolutely a very realistic concern. If you look at the business dealings between his family and, CCP-related entities there in China, these are entities that have direct relationship to the Chinese Communist Party, that are paying, millions of dollars to members of the Biden family. Nobody's been able to articulate what value the Biden family members have actually provided, yet the Chinese are willing to pay all these funds. We've actually seen, transcripts of exchanges between Hunter Biden saying he's sitting right there next to his father, and that his father is going to impose his wrath upon, the Chinese official, the Chinese business person, unless he makes the $5 million payment that was forthcoming after that threat was made by Hunter Biden. I mean, we've all seen the transcripts of that interaction. I think there are very deep concerns about the level of financial relationships between the Biden crime family and the CCP. And if you think about it, this is exactly what all of the background investigations, when I had to have a security clearance, that's exactly what you look for, is any way you might be compromised. And if you might be compromised, you shouldn't serve. We've got, smoking guns right, left, and center here with respect to China, with respect to Russia, with respect to Ukraine, where the Biden family has taken massive amounts. I'm talking millions of dollars. No explanation of what they've delivered for it, and every reason in the world for American citizens to be very concerned about what you just raised, whether there is a compromised situation here.
Senator, I'm curious, and we're speaking with Senator Bill Hagerty this afternoon on the Murphy Show on Super Talk. I'm curious at what point do you begin kind of an awareness of the potential that you might have to adjudicate all of this in the Senate as a juror of sorts, right? Because the talk in the other body in the House of Representatives is now that there is a potential for impeachment proceedings if we continue to gather this information and see whistleblowers come forward with further information about the potential for possibly bribery out of Joe Biden and his family when he was vice president of the United States. And the suggestions now being made, and I think Kevin McCarthy spoke to this Speaker of the House just yesterday, that that the House is open to an impeachment proceeding. Obviously, if impeachment happens, then that would come to the Senate for a trial. Have you already kind of begun fact gathering in that arena?
Well, Matt, you know your way around Washington more than any journalist. And if you think about it, McCarthy didn't make that statement just offhand. I mean, that statement's based on a tremendous amount of evidence and information that's coming in. The reason it's coming in is because the Republicans finally took control of the House of Representatives. They actually can issue subpoenas. It wouldn't have come in under Democrat control because the whistleblowers know the Democrats would never let this see the light of day. All they would do, is subject themselves to the risk of retaliation with no protection whatsoever. Now that we have control of the House of Representatives, we can actually provide that protection to these whistleblowers. They can now come forward and have a venue to bring this to light. And what's happened? One after the other exhibit, and we have seen more and more information, more and more evidence, if you will, of the corruption and the depth of the corruption of the Biden family. And also, and I think this is the most disturbing to everybody here in America, is the lengths at which our Department of Justice, our FBI, and other entities here in the federal government have gone and are going to try to protect the Biden corruption. So we have got, I think, a tremendous responsibility to look into this. The words that the Speaker used was an investigation. That's the next step. It's not an impeachment proceeding, but it's an investigation that will allow more information to be uncovered. That's what he's talking about right now. The way the information is pointing, I think it's taking us right to that. And as you suggest, Matt, we need to be getting ready over here. I haven't seen anything that's exculpatory of the Bidens that have come through this. All I see is a media that won't cover it. And that's not something that the American public's going to buy. I think the average person that's on the radio with us today can see right through this. And the more the information mounts, what we also see on full display as well is a two-tiered system of justice. And the next piece of information that drops on the Biden family leads to the next indictment on Donald Trump. They're trying to change the narrative. They're trying to get the media's attention to flow a different direction. But I think we can see. Yeah, we can see
I was going to say that's well spoken, right? Any negative information regarding the Biden crime family that will immediately lead to more conversation on the part of the mainstream media about Donald Trump, inexplicably, but that seems the way that it happens. By the way, Senator, you know very well that Tennesseans are engaged and locked in, and several of our listening audience wanted me to thank you for saying CCP instead of PRC, because you know very well why they're thanking you for that, because it's more appropriate than some of the mainstream media using the PRC language.
That's completely correct. And it's amazing that they've got the kind of hold that they do over the media here, over our Hollywood entertainment community, over NBA basketball, you name it. They're using every lever they possibly can.
Senator, in the moments that we have left, a couple of issues that I wanted to address with you, and obviously I'm getting to the big bombshell from yesterday, Hunter Biden, the plea deal not being accepted by the judge, thankfully. But real quick, Senator Tuberville, whom I know from my time in Alabama, has been, quote unquote, according to the mainstream media, blockading military promotions. He just wants to go to more of a regular voting cycle, and he's presenting a more important point that the military cannot unilaterally change certain policies that ought to be up to the Congress of the United States of America. Do you support Senator Tuberville in what he's doing?
Absolutely, I do. And Senator Tuberville, I think, was very right to say that the Biden administration using the Department of Defense as a mechanism to impose rules and taxpayer spending that we would have never legislated through Congress. This is about using taxpayer money at the DOD to send people, even in the 9th month of pregnancy, to have a full expense-paid trip to get an abortion. As Tommy Tuberville points out, if your mother died, you couldn't get permission, and you're certainly not going to get a full expense-paid trip to go to her funeral, but they're willing to use taxpayer funds for this. Senator Tuberville warned Austin, the Secretary of Defense, that if he were to move this direction, Tommy would no longer agree to expedite the promotion of these generals. And I want to be clear about this. It's Tommy's privilege to not expedite these, to force regular order, as you mentioned, Matt. And Schumer has an ability to deal with this himself. He just won't do it. Schumer loves holding on to the issue. Schumer needs to invoke cloture to begin to pass these through. He could even invoke cloture to pass the Commandant of the Marine Corps through, and he refuses to do it. The mainstream media isn't covering this. But for me to be the ambassador to Japan, cloture had to be invoked on me. We had to stop the Senate for 30 hours to get me through. They've reduced that number now down to 2 hours. He could get 15 generals through in the amount of time that they forced me to wait to go through the Senate confirmation process to become the ambassador to Japan. So Schumer has the tools. Secretary Austin was clearly forewarned, and I think that Senator Tuberville needs to stick to his guns, and we need to call it what it is. They are abusing and contorting through executive order and through administrative practice. This administration misusing taxpayer funds to do things that American taxpayers, certainly not Tennesseans, would ever condone.
Have you had an opportunity to speak to Senator McConnell? He had a little episode yesterday. It was caught on camera, and it's getting a lot of attention. Have you had a chance to speak to him or his office, or do you know how he's doing?
I certainly have, man. I saw him last night right afterwards. I was at lunch with him today. He's just fine. But I've had more media come up with, shove a camera and a mic in my face today asking me about his competence to serve, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they'd never asked me this when Joe Biden called.
Well, I said the same, not to interrupt you, Senator, but I said the same at the beginning of the show. It's nice to know, because Senator McConnell had just a moment where he had a little pause there. It's nice to know that they're now concerned about the health of our elected officials. They never ask questions about Joe Biden, do they?
No, that's exactly right. But again, I think it just shows we're on a two-tier path here in America. And he seemed just fine. I was just on the floor of the Senate with him just a few minutes ago. He seems absolutely fine.
Finally, Senator, how sure are you, how confident are you that we will get to the truth about how deep the rabbit hole goes regarding Joe Biden, his brother, his son, and their foreign entanglements and potential for illegal activity in his time as vice president and beyond?
Well, I think we're getting further and further every day thanks to the fact that Republicans have control of the House of Representatives. My hope is that we change that dynamic here in the Senate in the next year as we win back control of the United States Senate as well, and hopefully the White House. But what we've seen is a Department of Justice that's willing to do whatever it takes to let the statute of limitations run out, to cop some type of plea deal that none of the rest of us would ever give or get, I should say. And, it's going to be up to maybe the only avenue left will be an impeachment, because the Department of Justice is not going to bring charges. They're going to obfuscate things, and it's going to take a very deliberate effort on behalf of the Judiciary Committee and the Special Oversight Committee to get at this. But what we do know is that we have whistleblowers that are brave enough to come forward and put their name to it and call out what's happened and what's wrong with this situation. And I hope that we get to the bottom of it, because Americans are losing confidence in institutions like the Department of Justice and the FBI that we really do need to hold in much higher esteem. I have such high regard for the FBI agents that I know. I'm certain that the vast majority of people that work at the DOJ are there for all the right reasons, but the leadership here at the top is corrupt, and that's being exposed right now.
Senator, I thank you for being so available to the people that you serve in the state of Tennessee and beyond, and we appreciate you coming on the show with us today, and we'll do it again very soon. TN.com, back in a moment.